Metal coating touch-ups. First, we're going to start with our second coat of Bronze C. So previously, there would have been 2 coats of primer, and this is a resin cast, and now we're on our second coat of Bronze C. Now that we're caught up here, I think it's important to state that this is not going to be the entire list of touch-ups of metal coatings. This is going to cover a few of the more common questions that we get when people call in about how to touch up this or that. And I thought this video was overdue just in the sense that sometimes it's a very quick, easy fix, and just a visual component that goes with it could be really helpful. There are undoubtedly going to be a few people who question the reason for this video, but for those who have done the metal coating process and had it not turn out exactly the way you want, this video is for you. One of the main reasons why things go awry is that we're painting on a metallic paint, so it has actual metal in it. But we're still relying on a chemical reaction. And while the results are fairly predictable, I think that some of these can be easily touched up if you just can visually see what we're trying to describe on the phone. So now that we're going to get that second coat of Bronze C all over the place, we're going to put on Tiffany green. And one of the most popular faults in the metal coatings is if we just don't get the patina everywhere. It happens more often than not. Or sometimes the patina gets on there and it just doesn't react the way you want. So here I purposefully went lighter on the Tiffany green than I normally do so I can force it to not all turn green. And you can see even some of the green is darker than usual because it's not as vibrant. I usually flush it with more Tiffany green than is necessary, so it comes in a lot more. But you can see especially the undercuts underneath the ear, we totally missed that. And so this is common for first-timers who are just getting used to it. And one of the easy things you can try and do is just put more on. Now, the sooner you catch on to the, oh no, it's not reacting the way I want, the better. Sometimes you can fix it the same day. So if you see it a couple hours in and the Tiffany green starting to turn in some areas and not in others, sometimes you can put a little bit more. This is 24 hours later, so I would generally try and wait. And here I'm more focusing on where just the bronze is, less where the green is. You could hit the green again. It's just going to change it a little bit more. So it adds more dynamics though. So you can see it does take more. It did cover a lot of that bronze, but we did get some other chemical reaction going on as well. It's not necessarily bad. It just depends what you're looking for. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to take a wet paper towel and kind of wipe off and see if we can get some of these spots off, because I like the color, I just don't really like the spots. And then we're going to go in with a brush and go a little bit more aggressive because the paper towel just wasn't doing enough in my opinion on this case. We did do the C version on this, so that does allow us to the possibility of just burnishing it. But a lot of the times when I get a less than desirable area with the metal coatings, like specifically here on the trunk, or, there's dots all over the place. But a lot of the times I'll just wipe it down with a wet paper towel or a rag or something along those lines and just remove a little bit of the reaction. Sometimes that really subtle bronze coming through just under the green can really make it stand out and look great. So a wet paper towel can be a huge benefit. And this just has so many textures. That's why I then went to the brush, is because I realized that I wasn't able to get into some of the creases that I wanted to get into with the paper towel. And it does take off a little bit more of the patina. Anytime you do any sort of abrasion, it's going to. But it's just something that you have to play with and kind of know what's going to happen. But ultimately, I decided I didn't want to burnish, but I wanted to remove a little bit of the green that had reacted to get it a more uniform piece. This is just regular water with a little chip brush, so it's pretty normal that it bubbles up like this when you're doing it. It's just when you get it agitated, it starts doing it. There's nothing wrong with it, and I just did a quick rinse afterwards to get rid of some of the bubbles and not cause a buildup. But you'll see when we come in the next day, 24 hours later, that the finish is actually really similar to what a Tiffany green would give me in the first place, just with a little bit more bronze coming through. I actually really liked how this one turned out. But since this is a how to touch it up video, we're going to do the steel wool technique as well. This is 4/0 steel wool, and we're just kind of do a little bit of polishing. So you can do a bunch of different grades and combination of grades with the steel wool for this, and a lot of the times I just go straight to 4/0 to be honest. I've used 2/0 and then 4/0. That's for when I want a really big polish. You can go as far as 1/0 and then go to 2/0, 3/0, 4/0. So just to clarify, 0 means 0 as far as the packaging goes. So you'll see 10, 20, 30, 40. That's what the 4/0s mean. And a lot of the times I just use 4/0s, the steel wool though. And some people will ask, can they use bronze wool or something? It's fine. Nothing wrong with it. You can do it. I just have steel wool more readily available and it works fine, as long as I'm not putting a patina over the top, and I'll cover that later. But I'm just going to pull some off. Now, the reason why I wanted to show that in this video is that there's a few times that, you just sand through. It happens, especially with something as textured as this. If you're doing something, flat, it's not going to happen near as often. You just don't grab onto the highlights as well. But it's inevitable that the more you polish, the more you're going to take off, and you can break through the metal coating. And the primer is supposed to be there so you can, 1, adhesion, but 2, visually see when you're cutting through it as well. In this case, we polished right down through, and you can see the resin cast. It's a big white spot, and it just looks terrible. And I'm sorry my hat kind of got in the way here, but I'm just dabbing it on with a little popsicle stick and then smooth it out with my finger. And there's nothing wrong with this. A lot of the times, especially if you're going to have some of that bronze show through, you can blend it in really well. The other thing you can do is spritz a little bit more patina on there, and the Tiffany green in this case, and it'll help blend in as well. Now we have another one, little tiny one right there, and we're going to do the same thing. I just put on a little too much metal coating, so you got to be real careful with how much you put on, because otherwise it'll look like a fix. So that's where going in with just a little bit of Tiffany green can help you in that case as well. So to go over it again, 2 of the most common reasons why we have calls about metal coatings not working as intended is 1, the patina didn't react properly, or it didn't react at all. And so we kind of covered that, and I've got a few more points. I'll go into that in just a minute. And the second thing is burnishing through, and those are the 2 easy fix for that. And again, I'm going to go over with Tiffany green to help get that little bit of ear where I put too much metal coating on to blend in. And this is actually going to help uniform it a lot. So this is 3 coats of Tiffany green total, 2 of them on dry metal coatings. So another reason why the metal coating may not react as well is it might be too hot or too cold. So keep an eye on your temperature. The hotter it is, the faster things dry out. The colder things are, typically the longer it takes to react. So those are definitely things to keep in track. Humidity also comes into play, but typically the more humid, the more vibrant reactions, typically again. The other thing that I used to not realize I was doing and faltered early on when I was here was I would have a fan on, and so the fan would naturally dry out the metal coatings, causing the reaction not to have enough time to react. So just take a look at any factors that can cause a metal coating to dry out faster than it would have just ambiently, and that will cover a lot of the cases for the first fix there. Personally, I think this elephant turned out really cool. We just put a bunch of clear guard on it, and it really gives off this like left alone and old build up, and it's slowly starting to age a little bit more. You can see that Tiffany green almost went white in some areas. It's a little crusty. I really liked how this thing turned out. So just to clarify, that's 2 coats of Bronze C with 3 coats of Tiffany green over the course of a few different days just to fix each little thing. So here we have a resin cast with 2 coats of primer and then the Iron B and Tiffany green to rust it out. And you can see the Tiffany green took in some areas and didn't take it all in others. And then we got this really light color on the eyelids. So what we're going to do to fix this is I'm going to take a paper towel and just try and get some of the rust off. You can see a little bit on here, and there's a little bit of water on it. I don't want to soak it. It's fine if it gets more wet, it just takes longer to dry. But I'm getting the loose stuff off, and then I'm going to reapply the Iron B metal coating. So you can leave the patina on. You can see I left some of it on. I didn't get a whole lot of it off. But I like doing that quick little wipe down because if you leave a lot of it on, you can actually get another reaction going on with the patina that's on there mixing with the metal coatings, and it'll just skew your results. There's no problem as far as adhesion and everything. It just changes it a little bit. So I find this quick little rinse or wipe down with a wet paper towel really helpful to kind of normalize the reaction a little bit. So I mentioned bronze wool versus steel wool, and that it's fine to do steel wool as long as you clean it off. You just gotta make sure you get all that steel wool off. Otherwise, if you're doing the iron, it won't matter much. But if you're using the bronze like we did earlier and then steel wooling, and you don't get all that steel wool particulars off, and then you go over with some Tiffany green, well, then you're gonna have nice little specks of rust in there. So it can be kind of a cool effect, but you gotta make sure that's what you want first. So we've got our iron bead down again, and we put some more Tiffany green on. There's no problem doing all this. The only downfall is that you use more material, and therefore it is a thicker reaction. But you can go on thinner if you spray it down. So I've done this multiple times, and there's no problem doing this. And you can see I'm just hitting it with more Tiffany green just to get a better reaction. And going on with more Tiffany green, you can see got us a much darker rust color. Bronze C, Iron B, Tiffany Green, and ClearGuard EF Matte are all available at www.sculptnouveau.com or by calling us at 760-432-8242.